we know that rice and wheat and stuff like that, vegetables especially, cost a lot, but these things also cost a lot, and they are not good for your health. So you are paying corporations to consume poisons.
Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
Ever since I've been young, I've always been fascinated in puzzles and seeing different parts of puzzles and how they connect. And I feel like the genocide of working class people in India is like a puzzle, and we're shown these little pieces, right? Whether it's the farmer suicides, I just had an article up earlier. Farmer suicides in India are through the roof. So many farmers who have committed suicide because of unable to survive, right? You have that. Then you have the environmental stuff because of the deregulation of environmental policies and economics. Floods are increasing, people are being displaced, so they're forced into the cities, right? And they are no longer able to farm and feed themselves. So now what happens? Now those people from rural farming areas are forced into the slums of urban slums to get a low wage job that can barely get them any food to eat. The few of them who survive get these low wage jobs at whether it's a call center or a sweatshop or whatever it is that pays nothing. And so how are they going to feed themselves? The only thing that they can buy that's low wage is McDonald's or KFC, which are entering these markets now. You like from what I remember in Bangladesh, and some comrades have told me in India as well, that you have all these multinational companies, soda, junk food, poison, going into the country, eliminating the diet, the food that was nutritious. Indian food is amazing, by the way. I love Indian food. I can eat Indian food every day. But now a lot of these low-wage workers can't even afford their own food. Now they have to go to these poison factories, McDonald's, KFC, to eat this stuff. Heart disease is going up, diabetes is going up. So now you have low-wage workers who are off their land, who can't even eat their own food, who are forced to consume poison in these urban areas. So it's just like, it's crazy to see that. When I point that out to people, people are like, oh man, you're crazy. Like, you're conspiracy theorist. I'm like, this is a fucking genocide. Like, they're systematically killing poor and working class people in a very, very like methodical way in all these different avenues. And because of neoliberalism, because of capitalism, it's just crazy to me, it's just insane. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, actually, I could say a lot about this. So, firstly, like there are many different ways, and actually, at present, I'm just like looking at advertisements and things like that, and coming to the conclusion that they're actually trying to push on us this poison, and are trying to brainwash us into believing that they are very good. So, I mean, McDonald's or KFC are actually not that accessible. They are costly, but uh, what is not costly, and that I should say, is there are things actually that are very interesting and that are also costly, but people are just frightened, brainwashed, or shamed into consuming them. And the first one I should say is baby food. So growing up,
Mm.
we would be eating what our parents eat, only they would make it very soft and stuff like that. That was the only thing that they would do. So, like for millennia, people had not ever consumed what is called baby food. They would be little babies would be subsisting on their mother's milk, and then they would be moving on to food that everyday people consume. Now, what happened, and this is also a, a, a fallout of neoliberalism, or a way of actually just poisoning the population by neoliberalism, is in starting around like early 2000s. I'd know about this a bit later, because in early 2000s I was a baby child. But anyway, so it's starting around early 2000s. What was started to happening was that doctors would be frightening or shaming mothers into giving their children baby food, telling them that their children are not getting enough food. So that's the first thing. And like little babies would be taken off their mother's milk and go given like all those things that Nestle produces. So
Mm.
I mean, the baby food market in India, at least, is totally by Nestle, and there is also Unilever and a few other companies. And yes, you will be like recognizing all these names because they are also operating in the U.S. and in many parts of the world in the baby food industry. So in India, it's mostly Nestle and Unilever, and then all this Nan and Nestum and all these things. They're actually all products from Nestle. And then you would realize that these the doctors that were prescribing these things to mothers, they were actually mm, bribed by these corporations. And how do they bribe them? Not by money, but by like allowing them to go into conferences in countries like Europe, which conferences these corporations themselves either organize or sponsor, and then like all expenses paid, trips and stuff like that. So that is the way how they bribe the medical system. And let's talk about this because in India, the public healthcare system has been destroyed. Like it was never very strong, but even whatever existed since the start of neoliberalism, it has slowly been destroyed. So at present, like people in if even if you have anything like a very small something happens to you like a fever, or for example at present in the time of monsoon in places where it rains a lot, there is a lot of mosquito borne diseases like dengue, like chikungunya, which also happens in Central America. So instead of like you cannot get any treatment in hospitals, but you would have to go to the private doctors, private practitioners in your locality because hospitals would be far away from you, or they would not have enough staff, or something like that. So you would go to the private practitioners. In the same way, whatever happens, you have to go to private practitioners, and what they do, they would be prescribing you the things that these corporations bribe them to prescribe you. So that is how the food system is being corrupted from childhood. So children are growing up on this baby formula which we never consumed, like which was never consumed in this parts of the world. Like what on earth is this even? So
Yeah.
and I was looking at it like it's powdered milk. Like you make milk powdered and then you put a lot of sugar in it and some preservatives and say that you are putting supplements, and then they were like,
Dude.
why? So it's
Crazy.
of course we know why, it's for profits, but they are like destroying the health of a generation since childhood. And then when people are growing up, there are many advertisements of different drinks that you are supposed to give children so that their bones grow strong and stuff like that. Like it's supposed to contain calcium, and it's supposed to contain the precursors of vitamin D and stuff like that. And then you will see that those things are actually either wheat powder with some supplements added to them, or you will see that they are soy with some supplements added to them like that. And you'll be like, why don't you get that same thing from your food? So there's like, the way these advertisements go is like, do you know there are 30 different elements that you need every day and you cannot get them from your food? Then where do you get the things? So
Oh
this
my
is the way
god.
these advertisements go, and
Yeah.
actually, like I said, these private practitioners shame mothers into giving their children. Like, don't you want your children to grow up strong and healthy? So that is the way they're saying, and that they are not getting enough good things, like they're not getting enough nutrition from food. So you were just making children dependent on these things. And also these things are made like these things are colored, and these things are made flavorful and things like that, of
Mm.
course, that are not very healthy, but because they are so that there is so much flavor, it's so tasty and things like that, children are attracted towards it. Um, it's like an addiction. So that is what is developing. Like in July, I was in a railway station, and I was seeing a child like crying at the feet of her mother, and I was like, what is she begging for? I asked the woman that why is the child crying, and she would say that uh, mm, at the beginning she did not wish to say, but then she said that this child was wanting some potato chips that are actually also sold by Nestle in the
Oh
under the
my
brand name
god.
Lay's. And it's a was in, there are small shops. We still have small shops. We don't have supermarkets that much. So like there was a small shop close by, and she had seen it there, and she knows that her friends ate it, and she wanted to have it, and her mother was not wanting to give her that. And this was also a poor woman, but these things cost. I mean, we know that rice and wheat and stuff like that, vegetables especially, cost a lot, but these things also cost a lot, and they are not good for your health. So you are paying corporations to consume poisons. So of course there are some people who would not like their children to have them, but then you would have teenage children when they're going to school on their own. You would give them some money for transport and things like that, and they would be using that money to eat that thing, despite their parents not wanting them to. So after even from like around 30 years of age, people will be obese, people would have diabetes. And in a poor country, poor people having diabetes is such a big burden. Like these people would not be able to access the treatments that they would need. And if someone tells you you are a conspiracy theorist, and if these people are living in the US and Canada, they should
Yeah.
just look at Mexico. They should just look
Yeah.
at Mexico. The same thing has happened there since before India. Like it went into the neoliberal system since 1988, and its agriculture was destroyed starting from 1994. Like a lot before India, Indian agriculture system still exists. India still has a public distribution system of food, although that has been its scope has been reduced a lot. Still, India has a food corporation of India that has the duty to ensure that the people of India can access the minimum calorie requirement. Well, the equivalent of food corporation in Mexico was dismantled by neoliberalism. It has still not been recovered. And like in the 2000s, the uh, Secretary of Public Education, School Education of Mexico opened schools to these corporates, like to Nestle, to other corporates that actually, to McDonald's and stuff, that actually provide them school lunches. And you can imagine what lunches they provide in schools. So we still have cooked food as lunches in school, still have that. I mean, there is a lot of push to privatize that and to give it over to the corporates, because these McDonald's, all these corporates are lobbying hard and pouring a lot of money into these lobbying efforts in order to privatize all these things, to open up children's health and things like that. So, I mean, uh, like if anyone tells you are a conspiracy theorist, tell them to look at Mexico.
Most definitely. And shout out to Comrade Philly. Inorganic GMO filled crap is a big part of the new techno feudal existence being pushed by the World Economic Forum, coupled with lack of ownership of land resources. You will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm going to give you guys nightmares tonight. This is a little cartoon of Ronald McDonald feeding a burger. This is like some really satanic shit. Like when I see McDonald's, I think of this. Like just their branding, their targeting of children. It's some really demonic stuff. The mind. They even hired psychologists, child psychologists, to try to tap into child psychology. Like it's crazy. I remember hearing, the commercial, the McDonald's commercial. They go ba da ba ba ba. Like even that little jingle that triggers a response in the brains of kids. Like I want McDonald's, I want McDonald's. Like there's kids that know the word McDonald's before they even know the name, their last name, or the names of their family, but they know McDonald's. This shit goes like deep into your head for children. And this is why I tell people, like, this is why neoliberalism, capitalism, imperialism, it's not just economic. That at its root, it's an economic base and structure, but it takes so many wings. And I think the biggest wing of that in the modern society is media and propaganda.